The change in electoral systems to improve how public desires are expressed in election results is called electoral reforms. Now, the workshop here today with the theme Better Elections, Deepened Democracy is aimed at getting the populace to participate in governance, to participate in leadership, and to understand their roles in choosing leaders.
We've heard such things like our votes do not count, but really, we need to ask ourselves, if our votes do not count, why do we keep buying them? Why do we keep paying for them? So it means something is wrong when it is connect. Our votes count, but we need to exude confidence in our system. How do we do that? Is what we're going to be discussing today.
This particular project actually has 3 areas, and one of the areas is the voter apathy, where we talk about the crisis of confidence. So people do not really believe in Nigeria's electoral system, and that is why we've brought up this program, an electoral reform. So if the system is reformed, then perhaps people can start believing in the outcome of the system. So one of the things that have led to the voter apathy is because people do not really believe in the electoral system. They believe that the electoral umpire, which is the INEC, already knows the outcome of the election. Then why do we need to stress ourselves to get the PVC to go for the CVR, continuous voter registration, and do all of that sort of things when the result is already known?
Participants expressed their views on voter apathy, while the facilitators spoke on various topics. Abosede Alimi examined strengthening Nigeria's democracy through inclusion, stating that a political representation should be about the citizens, not leaving out women and persons living with disabilities, as the cost of exclusion is more expensive than the cost of inclusion.
When you see a gap, it's like a gutter. I'm a visual person, so I like to use that example. When you see a gutter, right, you don't go into the gutter, then come out, then, do you know what I mean? You create something or you jump. We need to close gaps, and that's really the summary of inclusion.
Yes, I think the first thing is, as they said, inclusion. But then I'll take confidence more important than inclusion, because we all lack confidence, most of us, and let me say all of us lack confidence in one way or the other. And what I can say is that, number one is we have to see reasons why we have to vote, because if you don't have a reason, I'm sorry, you can't tell me to eat when I don't have a reason to eat. So that's why we have to see the reason why we have to vote. So one of the reasons why we have to vote is because, as the lady said earlier, she said the power, we need numbers. Number is very important. So whenever you feel you are not, whatever you do, whatever you say is not important, just remember that if I don't do it, nothing will change.
I mean, voter apathy is something that we've discussed elaborately here today, and it's so important, for us to acknowledge it. I think that's the first thing. We must acknowledge that it is bad, because it's one thing to complain about what the issues are, and it's another thing to actually say, you know what, I'm part of the problem. So in terms of the way forward, I think part of what we're doing here today is all part of it, advocacy, and encouraging people to know what the consequence of that inaction is.
So both on the government, we are government, both on the governor's side and the government, we both don't understand our roles. So because of that, there's a mismatch. The most important office in a democracy is the office of the citizen. The citizen that is informed, the citizen that understands the issues, and the citizen that defines expectations, not just for others, but of himself and herself. That is how to engage effectively.
It's more than just getting a PVC as an individual. I think if I myself can educate my family alone, I think it will go a long way, because if my family is educated about these things, they'll be able to tell others why they need to vote. And I think when you are more doing something, like one of the facilitators said, if we are much and at the polling center, it will be very hard for anybody to create a scene. So I think if we should educate a lot of people, if I educate my family and a lot of us here, if we don't just stop by getting our PVC, but educate people, tell people about the need, why they need to be actively involved, I think it will go a long way.
Joachim Makebong highlighted effective strategies and systems for electoral reforms in Nigeria, as considerable support across board is important for democracy to take place.
What you want from Nigeria's electoral process is you want a more transparent process. Right? You want a process that is increasingly reflective of the wishes of the people. So you have an amendment like the one that ensures that INEC can do electronic transmission of results, for example. Although even the controversy around that may neither be here nor there, because INEC is empowered by the Constitution to conduct elections how it sees fit, and so having the National Assembly ask INEC or try to tell INEC what it can or cannot do may itself be a misnomer.
The apathy has to do with before the voting period, okay? So we all have to get involved, okay, in selecting the candidates and of course promoting our candidates before the elections. When that happens, it will reduce voter apathy during electioneering period. But when everybody just sits back and wait until election time, people don't go to vote when they don't know who is contesting, and they don't have someone who is saying, okay, this is my friend, my brother, my nephew, and all of that. So addressing voter apathy has to do with active participation in the process.
What we've been having, it's a narrative that we've been having since we were probably indoctrinated with, that our votes do not count, and so that has affected the way we perceive elections and our participation. But the new narrative that we need to share with Nigerians, especially young people, women, youth, and vulnerable people, is that our votes count and that we need to participate in the electoral process.
In a democratic system of government, elections should be conducted in a way that reflects the wishes and choices of the people in order to enjoy the benefits of democracy. Taking our civic duties seriously is paramount. Reporting for High Impact Television, I'm Esther Kalu.